negative numbers. Negative numbers are very useful for representing the opposite of up, for example. Negative number goes down. Financial profit is positive, but a financial loss is negative. A temperature above zero is a bit warmer than a temperature below zero, which is a negative temperature. So when in winter it drops down to -7, it's a pretty useful thing to do. We can also, or a pretty useful way to be able to describe it. We can also use negative numbers to describe debt. So if I owe someone $1, you might say I've got -$1. So we kind of need negative numbers. We need to be able to do maths with them. When we're adding and subtracting negative numbers, if we're adding, we're getting a bigger number. If we're subtracting, we're getting a smaller number. It can be really useful to picture negative numbers on a number line. So I've got a number line here. You see that negative numbers are smaller than 0, positive numbers are bigger than 0. If I add a positive number, so if, for example, I need to do -4 plus 3, that tells me that I start at -4 and move 3 spots to the positive side. I'm still negative, I'm at -1, but it's a bigger number. Sometimes it can be very hard to think, why is -1 bigger than -4? Think of temperature. -1 is warmer than -4. I'd rather owe someone $1 -1 than owe them $4 -4. So -1 is a bigger number. If I had to subtract a positive number, so for example, I needed to do 2 minus 4, I'd start at 2 and I'm doing minus a positive, taking away 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got down to -2. Now my number line will get a little bit tricky there. So if I'm adding or subtracting a positive number, adding a positive goes up, taking away a positive goes down. However, we can get a little bit confused when we're starting on a negative, as we did here, or when we're taking away a negative, adding a positive, all that sort of stuff. Adding and subtracting with negative numbers is just like a tug of war. We have team positive and we have team negative, and the only thing we need to know is that everyone on each team is absolutely equal strength. So one person on team positive and one person on team negative would cancel out. No one would ever win because they're both of equal strength pulling in opposite directions. And that's kind of like saying +1 minus 1, well, that equals 0. Or the other way we could put it is -1 plus 1 equals 0. So one person on team positive cancels out one person on team negative because they're of equal strength. Anytime we have to do a sum where we're adding or subtracting and there's negative numbers involved, let's look at our first one, -4 plus 3. We check to ourselves how many people are on team negative. Team negative have 4 people. How many people on team positive? Team positive have 3 people. The team with the most people is going to win. So the first thing you always ask yourself is just which team is going to win. Team negative is going to win and by how many people. They're only one person over. -4 plus 3, or -4 plus 3 gives me -1. The second example I did, 2 minus 4. The minus goes with that. If there's no sign in front of the 2, that's a plus. So team negative has 4 people. Team positive has 2 people. Team negative is going to win. Always check which team is going to win. By how many? They've got 2 people over. They're going to win by 2 people. Let's get a little bit more complicated. What if I've got 4 plus -3? And sometimes people put that in brackets. Well, adding on a negative, I've got 4 people here. They're definitely on the positive team. There's no sign in front of them. And I've added 3 people to the negative team. So team negative and team positive are still battling it out here. Team negative has 3 people. Team positive has 4. Which team will win? Team positive's bigger this time, so I don't need to put a plus down, and they're bigger by 1 person. It's really, when I've got plus and minus right together like that, it's really the same as saying minus. This sum was 4 minus 3. We can do that. It's 1. So we don't need to get too confused. Sometimes it's just an ordinary sum. Another example, 5 plus -8. So I had 5 people on team positive, and then I got 8 people on team negative. Team negative's bigger this time. Negative by how many people? By 3. We could check that on the number line if we wanted to. 5 is going to be up here. Let's start at 5 and go down by 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure enough, -3 is my answer. So the negative movement to the left on the number line is really helpful, but so is thinking of the tug-of-war. The tug-of-war even helps when I've got a negative minus a negative. -3 minus another 4. Well, on team negative, I've got 3 people and another 4 people on team negative. Team positive didn't even show up at all. So team negative wins by 7 people, because there's a total of 7 people on team negative. The last thing that can get kind of tricky is taking away a negative. -4 minus -3. But still, team positive and team negative will work out. -4, 4 people on team negative, but then I've lost 3 people from team negative. Losing a negative is just like having a positive. So really, 3 people on team positive. Team negative still winning, but they lost 3 of their negative people. So we've got just down to -1. Taking away a negative is a positive. The other way to think about that, homework is obviously a negative thing. If I give you homework, I've given you a negative thing. Overall, that's a negative. But if I take away your homework, I've taken away a negative thing. Overall, that's a positive. Taking away a negative, adding a negative is negative. Taking away a negative is positive.